in 46 minutes, I think it is, of Dan Nelson rambling. Kind of sounds like a country music song, doesn't it? By the way, the music that's playing in the background right here is Gintis again. A little interested that the piece is called Lithuanian Chorale. This is after the Soviet Union and all its satellites fell apart in 1989. Gintis wrote what has become the de facto new national anthem of Lithuania. And I'm telling you, this, I know you haven't heard of him, it's because we're Americans, but Gintis was an absolute rock star. I heard several people say that whenever he went back to Lithuania, he couldn't walk down the street. He was mobbed like an Elvis or a Michael Jackson. He was just mobbed on the streets. And the piece that we're listening to is the Lithuanian Chorale, which he wrote, which is now not the official, but the de facto national anthem. Because the real official one, I guess, at least last I heard, the official one is still the communist national anthem, but nobody wants to sing that one anymore. So that's just how, what kind of man he was. It was an honor to know him. And yes, I look forward to playing with him again. Whew, I think I'm finally getting down to the traffic in this painting. As I looked at the original photograph, I felt like the cars in the foreground were a significant element, a significant part of what drew me to the image. So I'm spending quite a bit of time, going to spend quite a bit of time rendering these cars, which also, by the way, is a fairly new development for me. I used to, if you go back and look at my earlier paintings, you'll see that this is very true. I used to just rough in the traffic, the paintings, give the vague impression of cars, but not render them too carefully. And here lately, I've been rendering my cars much more carefully. And let me know if you think that's a good idea or not, especially the reflection and the highlights and so forth. Hey, while I'm on the subject of traffic, can I tell you one of the artists that I already mentioned, Richard Schmid, whose work I emulate, whose work I adore. I'll often just go and look at his work online just to salivate for a few minutes, and by looking at his, hope that I'll do a better painting. I'm not copying him, not at all. There's enough difference between us, but oh my goodness, he's good. Well, here's another one. I want to let you know about one of my favorite artists in the world, and he's actually from where? Slavia, one of the Slavic countries. I'm sorry, one of the Eastern European. All of a sudden I'm drawing a blank, but his name is Tibor Nagy, T-I-B-O-R and he does traffic. Oh my goodness, he does his vehicles so well. By the way, I don't know if you noticed that license plate just suddenly magically appeared on that car. The reason I couldn't show it to you is because my back was in the way. That happens occasionally, fairly occasionally, especially in this later half of this painting process. I don't want to show you a close-up of my sweater, so I did that, but I did it with one stroke with a palette knife, and that one stroke is fairly important. So look up Tibor Nagy, T-I-B-O-R, not to be confused, of all things, with the Tibor Nagy Gallery, I think, in New York City. They're not related to each other. That's hard for me to believe, but it's true. How can there be two people named Tibor Nagy? But evidently there are. Tibor Nagy in the Eastern European somewhere. And look at his vehicles, look at his traffic. He's influenced me. I'm pursuing him, trying to be influenced by him, and you're actually seeing some of that in the way I rendered these vehicles. One of the things that I like to point out to beginner student painters, and I hope you're picking up on this, I hope this is getting into your psyche, your soul, just by watching me paint. At no point in the painting process do I bring a brush load of paint over to the canvas and, just brush it around. I suppose you could say I did that with the acrylic early stages, but as you can see, that was quite different. Now, in this stage though, see, every stroke is, you could say, pre-planned. Every stroke is deliberate. Most importantly, and again, if you're an up-and-coming painter, learn this one. Every stroke is simple. You'd be much better off, instead of calling that thing in your hand a paintbrush, you'd actually be a much better painter if you'd stop calling it a paintbrush and you called it a backhoe. What do I mean? A backhoe is a tool that picks up a load and then dumps it, right? And that's what you should think of your brush. It's a tool. All it does, there's nothing, it's not for, in other words, it's not for brushing. You're not supposed to go brushy, brushy, brushy. That's what you do with a toothbrush or a brush that you use to wash the dishes. But with a paintbrush, you don't go brushy, brushy, brushy. It's just a backhoe. You back it up to the pile of paint, beep, 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 load up the paint, and back it up to the canvas, beep, 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 and dump your load. Get it? That's what you do. Oh, now, sure, right then, here, so now I'm doing some brushy, brushy. Okay, with the exception of scumbling, and here I'm scumbling transparent marks, but even that, it was a deliberate, it was not, I wasn't confused. I knew exactly what I wanted to do with that. Now watch what I do with this reflection here. First of all, I paint it in. You see that? And then I stand back and go, nah, that's too intense. So I want you to understand what I just did with a rag is not erasing. If you have the word erase in your mind, you're going to be grumpy, because erase connotates that you made a mistake and now you're fixing it. So while you're painting with a rag, you're going, you know, all that bad words are going on in your head. So it's not erasing, it is painting with a rag. And then you're not grumpy about it. Get it? There I am again, painting with a rag. Not erasing, painting. So make that one change in your terminology, and you'll, just by changing the terminology, you'll be a better painter. It's not erasing, it's painting with a rag. And I, yeah, of course, have done quite a bit of it. I labor over these vehicles quite a bit because I want to get them accurate. So I want to be a good drawer. But I hope you'll notice that the laboring is simple. I'll put a stroke down, put down the stroke, then I'll come back with a palette knife and smear the stroke. Then I'll come and put another stroke. I don't brushy, brushy, brushy. Does that make sense? I hope I'm not offending anyone. But most of my, when I teach a beginning painting class, I see a lot of brushy, 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 which is born of confusion. You don't really know what you're doing. And of course, you got to start somewhere, so good for you, at least you're trying. So I'll put a stroke down, then I'll come and sgraffito with the end of my brush. I'll rub it with my thumb. You saw me doing that earlier. I'll rub it with a rag, and so on and so forth. So I'm building up little by little. Even that black car that's in the foreground right now, see those tail lights? I'm actually going to come back and mess those up in a little while with a palette knife. I stood back and said, nah, they're too clean. So I messed them up. But I didn't, all of my messing is, I didn't belabor it. I didn't stroke it 4, 5, 6 times. I just stroked it and I was done. Hey, I mentioned just a minute ago about using my thumb in painting. If you were in my painting class, every time I use a finger or a thumb, I would say, never use your fingers. Because I don't want you to use your fingers. Let me tell you why I do. Okay, you ready for this? And actually you can if you follow my instructions. I have no, listen to me, I have no cobalt or cadmium paints on my palette. Okay? No cobalt blue and no cadmium yellow, cadmium red, cadmium orange. No cobalt violet. You know, the jury is still out as to how toxic those paints are. The paint manufacturers will tell you they're not toxic, and they're probably right. But isn't it funny, the state of California says these products have been known to cause cancer. Good thing, if you're not in California, they don't cause cancer, but if you guys live in California, you know, don't use them. Okay, so the jury's still out, but